I remember the first time I tasted sushi, I was so disturbed by the idea of why would anybody in their right mind take a risk on eating fish that either was undercooked or not cooked at all. Yet I've discovered, as in many things in life, is that the best things involve taking a little bit of a risk. And yet as you get into that risk, stepping out on the limb a little bit, that there's rich reward that follows those who take risks, and they are encountered by the incredible discoveries that occur in life. I was recently talking to a reporter from CNN, and this woman was actually involved with the spiritual side of CNN, and as we chatted, she said, "You mean I don't have to have my act together before I seek out God, before I seek out Jesus?" And I said her first name. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I said, "You are beginning to get the picture now." But that is one of the great myths of all time, is that we get our act together, then we begin to seek God, then we begin to seek Jesus. And she said, "Boy, that is a complete new idea to me. I was working on getting my act together, then I was going to try to begin to seek God." And I said, "You will never get your act together. That's the problem. You'll be on your deathbed breathing and saying, gee, one of the things I wish I'd done is gotten my act together." If you look back at your own life, whether it was getting married or deciding on a major in college or which college to go to, at some point you had to take a risk to go forward. And if you look back at the things that really became an enjoyable part of your life, at some point you probably tasted those things and you at first didn't even like them. For example, some of you are cigar lovers. The first time you puffed on a cigar, you said, "Who in their right mind would like these horrible things?" And then 90 days later, you're paying $10 a pop for a cigar that was imported from somewhere in South America, and you're saying, I prefer, this version of the Ecuadorian grown tobacco and so on." And you're pretty much an aficionado. Or maybe it was single malt Scotch, or maybe it was some kind of an imported ale from England. You start out saying, "Ooh, how terrible," and 90 days later, you're kind of an aficionado. And yet that's the way that life tends to work over and over again, that we start out taking a risk and we become not only enjoying those things, but we love those things. In the spiritual world, is somebody's taken a risk on you by showing you maybe a little bit of kindness, maybe a lot of kindness. And so maybe somebody bought you just a cup of coffee, just a rather small touch of kindness, but it made a touch in your heart enough that you actually took their advice and came to kindness.com. All of progress spiritually, all of progress emotionally has to do with going further out on the risk limb. I went from sashimi in my risk level to something called blowfish. Maybe you've heard of blowfish. It is the most addictive kind of sushi that is made. There is sushimi, the raw stuff, and then the ultimate raw stuff is blowfish. A little more expensive, but the first time you try it, you may not like it, but if you are to dare try it a second time, in most cases you utterly fall in love with blowfish. The thing is about blowfish, you have to take on the right part of the blowfish, or it can be toxic. Now, it is that way with spiritual things as well. Not all spiritual things lead to life. I think anybody with an open mind, just saying that I can read this and understand it myself, will see just by a perusal of the scriptures, the New Testament in particular, that this is not a complicated book. I do not need a team of people hovering over me, telling me what it says and telling me how to believe and so on. It says itself that as I read the scriptures, I become an intelligent, a wise person. I challenge you to take the ultimate risk, dive out into the blowfish level of spirituality and test God. Begin to look into spiritual matters. Specifically, begin perhaps today to pick up an easy to read New Testament and begin to read it as I and my wife, Janie, did, both in our adult years, not having grown up in church, not having any spiritual approach to God at all, saying maybe there's a God, maybe there isn't. But God, I want to know you, and would you show yourself to me as I read? And not even starting out with the Bible in our case, but checking out all sorts of other books, and ultimately ending up saying, maybe there's something in this thing called the Bible as our last resort, and discovering that this is exactly what we've been looking for all along. the Blowfish of Sushi, the story of Jesus, the risk that we've been dying to take, that our hearts have been tugging us along all along to discover. Some of you right now are at that point of feeling the invitation of God Himself, not because I've given a clever presentation, not because I have somehow talked you into anything. If you feel in a unique way as though God Himself is tapping you on the shoulder, I would like to pray with you on this video, just in a very short form. It is so simple, this prayer, that you will almost fall out of your chair as you watch this, perhaps at an airport or perhaps in your hotel room or at home. I don't know what the context is. It's so simple, you will say, I didn't realize it was that simple to get involved in a life-altering relationship with God. You know, every time one of the prophets of God in the Old Testament got into the presence of God, they were so stunned by the majesty, by the presence, by the power of God, they didn't get wordy and religious, start speaking in King James English. No. What they did was they said very short, direct responses to God. And they almost always said the same exact thing. They said, here I am. All that I have, in other words, is yours. I am wholly, fully available to you. It wasn't as if they were adding God as a little hobby to their lives. No. They were fully, wholeheartedly giving themselves to God. And sometimes when you talk to people that are kind of churchy, kind of religious, kind of, you get the idea that they just changed a little teeny bit. But again, like I said earlier, we're talking about the biggest change that will ever happen in your life. If you're feeling invited and called to take a step like that, would you pray this simple little prayer with me? God, here I am. Here I am. Here I am. Here I am. If you prayed that prayer today, that you will, over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 90 days, maybe the next several months, little ideas will pop into your head. Well, you will get the idea, I am so regretful having done this in my past. Would you just stop right there and just pause and don't dwell on it? Just say, God, I turn from that. I would love to hear your stories in brief. God bless you. It's been a fantastic time connecting with you. Until we next connect, Steve Sjogren here signing off.